Yes, as my giant head fills the screen. How's that for an evil laugh, huh? Come to your cord screen. Uh-oh, what's going on here? How's that for an evil laugh, huh? Oh, we're getting an echo. Come to your cord screen. Uh-oh, what's going on here? How's that for an evil laugh? Oh my God, oh, we're getting an echo. Come to your cord screen. We have a technical issue. Uh-oh, what's going on here? How's that for an evil laugh? Oh my God, oh, we're getting an echo. Come to your cord screen. We have a technical issue. Hello? I think we fixed it. Okay. All right. It's 10
Hello?
Oh shit. God
I think we
almighty.
fixed it. Okay.
All what the hell? It's 10
Hello?
Oh shit. God
I think we
almighty.
fixed it.
What's
Okay.
going on here?
All
What
right.
the hell? It's 10
Hello?
Oh shit. God
I think we
almighty.
fixed it.
What's
Okay.
going on here?
All
What
right.
the hell? It's 10
Hello?
Oh shit. God
I think we
almighty.
fixed it.
What's
Okay.
going on here?
All
What
right.
the hell? It's 10
Hello?
Oh shit. God
I think we
almighty.
fixed it.
What's
Okay.
going on here?
All
What
right.
the hell? It's 10
Hello?
All right, folks.
Shit.
God
I think we
almighty.
fixed it.
What's
Okay.
going on here?
All
What
right.
the hell? It's 10
Hello?
All right, folks.
Shit.
God
I think we
almighty.
fixed it.
What's
Okay.
going on here?
All
What
right.
the hell? It's 10 All right.
All
One
right,
more. Okay, did we solve it? There was quite a lot of delay there, whatever it was. Okay, did we solve it? Nope, we didn't. Shit. There was quite a lot of delay there, whatever it was. Okay, did we solve it? Nope, we didn't. Shit. There was quite a lot of delay there, whatever it was. All right, so
Okay. Did we solve
I've
it?
determined
Nope, we didn't.
that the problem is the system and not my
Shit.
end. It's not in our
There was quite a
studio.
lot of delay there. Whatever it was.
So
All
we're
right,
going to
so
cut the connection and
determined
reconnect.
that
Thank
the
you. The
problem
problem is the system and not my
Shit.
end. Okay, I think we got it. I have to apologize for that. It's 9:08 in the Central Time Zone right now. I figured out what it was. Yeah, yes, it was human error. It was. I admit it. Okay, so where were we before we were so rudely interrupted? I'm Jim Peters. Welcome to Jim Peters Tonight. Now we're gonna have a guest tonight, which is particularly the reason I didn't want to can the show. I don't want to put people that we arranged to talk to you in the lurch. Nathan Sue from the Epoch Times will be joining us around the 30-minute mark in the hour to talk about what's going on in China. He's an expert at this. He's the China correspondent for the Epoch Times. He's also a former Chinese expatriate. He lived there. He grew up there. He knows all about it. I'll just give you a rundown. He does not like the Chinese Communist government, and neither do I. And that's the reason I put him on. I don't like them either. You know why? They're communists. That's why. It doesn't work. And communists always end up bossing people around. They do. What is it with humans? We just seem to want to control everyone and everything. The vast majority of people have a desire to control other people. I gotta admit, I don't get it because I don't have it. And I'm not saying that because I'm holier than thou. And as a matter of fact, it's probably as much of a curse as it is a blessing, but I don't have it. And I've been in leadership positions in my life before, and in some ways, it has not done me well. The fact that I don't actually relish bossing people around. I don't mind it either. I don't. Somebody's going to tell somebody what to do. I call it the big brain theory. In every project, in every business, every division, everything, you need one person who's a big brain who basically has the whole thing in their head. That's I feel strongly about that. And communism doesn't, because communism runs off the collective. In communism, we're all just a big beehive. It works great for bees. I don't think it works great for humans. Not only that, it doesn't make humans happy. And don't you want to be happy? Yeah, you do. Everyone wants to be happy. Happy is not something you attain. Happiness is the process in which you go through life. It's being in the moment. And all right, I'm off on the tangent here because I got so discombobulated about the fact that we got the um, audio all mixed up. Okay, so you may have noticed this week. I posted a little short video on this on our platforms too. This week we're starting an hour earlier. Actually, we're going to through next Monday. We got a show next Monday, and what is that? The 28th. And then we're gone. We're done for a week. We're taking the week off, and we're coming back the day after Labor Day. And that's mostly so I can get my shit together over here. So we've been doing the show now 3 weeks. We've learned a lot of stuff. I got to tell you, we've learned a lot of stuff, technologically wise, social media and networking wise, the way all these different platforms work. Some work better than others. We are on 7 platforms, 8 if you count Podbean audio. My personal thing, watch this on Rumble. That's the short answer to that question. That's what I think. But any rate, we have that. So all this week we're starting an hour earlier than our posted time, which the posted time is 11 p.m. Central or Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. This week we're starting 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. So we're starting at 9 p.m. in the Central time zone where I'm sitting. Except Wednesday. I don't mean to screw you up here. Wednesday, we're going to go live as soon as the Republican primary debate on Fox News is done. As soon as it's done, within 2 minutes. I'm not waiting around for any spin zone crap, none of that shit. As soon as that debate is finished, we're going to go live. And you can call me up. We'll talk about what the hell happened, okay? Little coffee clutch time. So now we haven't had a lot of callers here. I've told you, the show is unique. It's apparently, according to Talkers Magazine, the Bible of the talk media business in the United States, this is the first show in America to ever take video phone calls. But it's really, really easy. We've only had a handful of people call up in the last 3 weeks, but I've asked every one of them. I made a point to ask every one of them, was this hard to do? Everyone said no, easy as pie. Matter of fact, David from San Francisco said it was harder finding our website than it was to actually call in. And he's right. It's like our website's at jimatnight.com, and the page to call in is at geminiteknight.com/call, which makes it like right here. Well, I can't. Hold on a second. Right there. There it is. geminiteknight.com/call. You go to that page. There's a giant blue button at the top of the screen. The only thing you need is you need to access that page with a Google Chrome web browser. That's it. That's the only thing you need here. Use a Google Chrome web browser. Almost everybody has one on your device, whatever your device is. Well, there's an exception. If you're on an iPhone or an iPad, you use the Safari web browser that comes with it. Other than that, you use Google Chrome for everything else, and you push that button, you get to a preview screen. On that page, below the button, there's instructions on what's going to, how this works and what's going to happen, but you don't really need them because you're savvy, and this is really super simple. You push the button, you end up in a preview page where you get to check your camera and microphone. You push the join button at the bottom when you get the crap out of your teeth, and you're stuck in the queue, and I take your call. It's as simple as pie. Okay. I know we're having a hard time getting people to do this because I think it's, and also another thing too, for those of you who don't want your face on the screen, you can choose, there's a drop down where you choose your camera. One of the choices, even if you only have one camera, the next choice is no video. And if you choose no video, we will not use your camera. However, if you choose no video, you'll get a little pop-up thing. The screen will change and you can it avatar. And it would help me a lot if you did that. Just any picture, Yogi Bear, I don't really care, whatever. You upload any picture you want as an avatar, and that will be on the screen instead of your mug. That's the way this works. It's really, you can do this. You can, trust me. So we got Nathan tonight. Tomorrow night, Wednesday night, we got the Republican debate. We're going to talk about that. Thursday night, a guy named Craig Williamson is joining us. He's the host of the Vanished podcast, and they talk about missing persons. And this guy's so fascinating, just based on a phone call. I've already asked him to come back, even though we haven't done the show yet. We haven't even had him on. I've already asked him to return. He knows his brain is filled with a lot of, some would say useless crap. I say fascinating. So we're going to talk about two things on Thursday. And he brought this up and said, what do you want to talk about? And I didn't know this. They've done 50 episodes. You heard me right. I didn't misspeak. They've done 50 episodes on Amelia Earhart. Now, if you don't know who Amelia Earhart is, she's at this point, you're youngins, it's kind of lost to history because she went missing almost 100 years ago. But we will explain that on Thursday. So I said, okay, let's do an aeronautics theme. So we're going to talk about half the show. The interview is going to be about Amelia Earhart. The other half is going to be about D.B. Cooper. D.B. Cooper on November 24th, 1971, hijacked an airplane. Was it a United flight or American? I can't remember. That was going from Seattle to Portland. It's like a 30-minute flight. It's like a hop, skip, and a jump. And he hijacked that plane, and he jumped out the back with a parachute and $200,000 in cash, and he's never been seen again. The money was never spent, although $5,000 of it was recovered in 1980, 9 years later, on the bank of the Columbia River. They found $5,000 of it, but that's it. And also, the really weird thing is they had forensics experts, undig that money once it was found. A little kid found it. He was on a picnic with his parents. They determined that it did not end up in the sand, but it wasn't washed ashore. It was buried. That's what they determined, that somebody buried it, but only not $5,000. No, it's just the whole thing. This whole thing is just like, it's a mind bender. There's at least 14 people, at least at one point, the FBI had 1,000 suspects listed for this, but there's at least 14 people that perfectly fit the profile of what this guy, who this guy was and what he did. I mean, he used a pseudonym. D.B. Cooper ended up being what folklore ended up calling him, but that was actually a mistake. He signed in as Dan Cooper on the manifest to get on the airplane. That was his name to get on the airplane. And that got, perverted into D.B. Cooper by a reporter, and it stuck. But at any rate, these two things are the thing about Amelia Earhart. She tried to she was trying to be the first person to fly all the way around the world, and she had to stop. And she flew west to east, and so the last part of her trip was going over the Pacific Ocean, and she had to stop for refueling at a small island, just a tiny spit of an island called Howard Island, several hundred miles from Hawaii. That island is basically nothing more than an airstrip. And I think to this day that's still true. I think, I'm not sure. It's very small. But she was going to stop there to refuel. She never made it. And there's been conjecture ever since what happened to her. Obviously, you'd say she ran out of fuel and she dumped it in the Pacific. But there's a lot of people in the surrounding islands who say that she was captured by the Japanese, she was captured by Native American tribes, that she was held, tortured. There's all sorts of rumor, and not only that, there's some evidence to back up some of the rumor. That's the weird part. So there's probably nobody on the planet who knows more about this than Craig Williamson. So we're going to talk to him. I'm looking forward to it. And we're going to be joined by Nathan in about 10 minutes here. So what happened today? Joe Biden, our president, the 46th president of the United States, went to Maui to try to console the populace and completely fucked it up. This is probably going to end up being his Katrina. It's like he drove through Maui and people were giving his motorcade the middle finger. That's what was going on here. He told this story that he's told many times about this kit. He said, I can relate to what's happening here. There's a fire in my kitchen and my house almost burned down, which is apparently a complete exaggeration. The fire in his kitchen was extremely minor, and he literally said at some point, he said, I almost lost my Corvette. And that's really comforting to people who have lost everything they own, not to mention the fact that this entire town has been basically wiped off the map. I mean, this could not have gone worse. This guy is just a fucking buffoon. You can say, well, Jimmy, you shouldn't swear on there. No, bullshit. At some point, we got to get angry about this. We've had the liberals have been angry about Trump for 5 years, and they don't know why. Because Trump, at the end of the day, did a really good job running the country. And that's the thing. They don't know why they're angry. Oh, he says mean things. Oh, shut the fuck up. Who cares? I don't care. Just do the fucking job, And so here we got a guy, it's the opposite. Uncle Joe, old Uncle Joe, is going to bring the country together. He's going to unify us, He'll bring some dignity back to the White House. And the whole thing's the absolute opposite. Do I have to? I mean, you couldn't script this better. You got a guy that half the country hated his guts, who did a really, really good job. And you got a guy that got elected because everybody thought he was going to be milquetoast and bring some quote unquote dignity back to the office. And he has done anything but. He's the epitome of incompetence. This guy could not do anything right. It's mind boggling. And so we got to listen to now here, if I have to tell you, if you vote for this guy in 24, well, first of all, this is going to be really interesting. Mark Tapscott, our guest last week, he got on. He covers Congress, and he said, I asked him, "Tell me something I don't know," and he said, "Yeah, I'll tell you something you don't know. Joe Biden is probably not going to run for re-election, and this is a scuttle I'm hearing too." Now, I want to move on here to this is not only am I hearing this last weekend, for first time ever, some of the liberal news outlets were questioning whether Joe should run. I got a couple of things here. CNN, they said Jake Tapper got on and saying, as we really actually acknowledge the fact that Biden might really be legitimately in deep doo-doo. He's basically the first person in the mainstream press to say that. The Washington Post columnist, what's his name? Henry Olsen, he wrote a column that was today saying that he's changed his mind. He thinks Biden should be seriously investigated. They've been poo-pooing this for years or months, and now he's changed his mind. He's just, I know the guy should be investigated. I think what we're going to see here is we're going to see a subtle campaign to talk Joe out of running again. And Joe, and they're not going to embarrass this guy. They're not going to, but they're going to let him come out and say, I really thought about this. I don't want to do this anymore. But actually, it seems like he doesn't. And that's the other thing that's been brought up in the last few days too. I watched on the 5 yesterday or something like that, and Gutfeld's talking about this, about the fact it does not seem like Joe actually likes doing this, at least anymore. He's on vacation almost constantly. He doesn't really do anything publicly. I mean, there's no he went to Maui, he completely fucked it up. Totally. It could not have gone worse. I mean, the crowd was literally giving him the finger. And I think Gutfeld's right. I don't think he's actually enjoying this anymore. I think he's too old to enjoy anything. I mean, the guy's elderly. Let's face it, he is. We have an elderly president, and I'd say his brain is going, but in reality, he never really had one. I mean, you look back on the history of Joe Biden, he's never been known as a smart guy. That's the last adjective anybody ever used to describe him. So, I think that Tapscott's right. I think at some point in the coming year, we're going to hear, I bet a change. He's out of a change of heart. The other thing is, since it's been brought up too, he barely has an election staff. He has just enough of a campaign staff to qualify for having one, but it's literally only a handful of people, and they don't have an office. I mean, they're working. They have an address in Delaware. That apparently they don't actually have an office there. They're working out of the White House, and he has done just enough to satisfy people who want to look into this. So if he had no campaign staff, it'd be obvious, you know. But the thing is, yeah. So that's the thing. He's just qualified for having a campaign staff and for doing stuff. That's it. It's pretty. If he's serious, he's not very serious. So it's starting to look like that this might be the case. Now, then the question is, well, who runs instead? And the two obvious people are Kamala and Newsom. And no matter, Trump will be in jail and he could beat the crap out of both of them. I mean, in some ways, Biden is as hard. It would be his biggest hurdle because, first of all, Biden's beat him once already. I know a lot of people say that Trump shouldn't run for that reason alone. He's already lost to this guy. I disagree. I think the circumstances have changed. He is an ex-president. We have Biden is now a sitting president. Biden was not a president before. We've seen what Biden can do, and we've seen what Trump can do. And you'd be nuts to say that Trump did not do a better job. And yeah, there are a lot of people who are nuts. They're just not. They're completely irrational. It's I asked. Who did I ask? I have to. We've only been on there 3 weeks, but you have to understand, I've been doing podcasts and radio shows for years. So I constantly get people confused. But I think I was talking to Jazz Shaw, and I asked him point blank, why do the Democrats, the liberals, hate Trump so much? And he said, well, first of all, you have to remember, he thwarted their first female president. And I think that has a lot to do with it. I think there are people who still haven't forgiven Trump for this. The fact that Hillary didn't win because Trump got in his way. The reality is Hillary didn't win because she didn't know what the fuck she was doing. That's the reality of it. I mean, she handled her campaign terribly. I don't understand these people who get to this level. I just don't understand it. They think that they're beyond reproach, and they completely mess things up. And it's like, what don't you? This was, I don't know if this is apocryphal. I don't know if this actually happened, but this has been rumored for years and years that Bill was constantly telling Bill Clinton, who was maybe arguably the best political mind of the 20th century. I'd even include FDR with that, very, very, very possibly, who was telling her staff constantly that they were screwing this up and telling them specifically what they were doing wrong. And they were poo-pooing him, no, get out of here. We know what we're doing. I mentioned this on a previous show, and I think it was in the last 3 weeks. Every single time in my life, I've heard somebody say, trust us, we know what we're doing. Every single time they've been wrong. There are no exceptions. Every single time I've heard those words, the people saying them have been wrong. I don't know what to make of it. And there's a case here too. Everyone, hell, even Trump thought Hillary was going to win. I mean, everyone thought Hillary was going to win, but she handled this so badly. There's states where there were toss-up states she didn't go to at all. She wasn't particularly good. I bitched about the fact, and this is still true, the reason I think that Trump actually did win the 2020 election. My reasons have to do with crowd sizes, and that is, with one exception, in 5 days before the 2020 election in Pennsylvania, where Biden drew 900 people, he did not draw more than 200 people for any campaign event in an entire campaign. There's 330 million people in the United States. There's 160 million voters, and he's drawing 100, 150 people. Meanwhile, Trump was drawing an average of 20,000 people per campaign event. Average. Now, you go back to 2016, Hillary was drawing about 1,500 people per campaign event, which is way better than Biden, but it's that barely crosses the threshold of acceptable. And not only that, the major news organizations were shooting her campaign rallies. They were shooting the camera angles to make it look like there were more people there than there really were. They were trying to help her out. But the fact of the matter is, she would show up in some town, in some high school gym, and, there'd be about 1,000 people there. Okay, fine. That's all right. And meanwhile, Trump is drawing 20,000, 30,000, 40,000. I don't think it was 16. I think it was 22. I think the most Trump drew at one campaign event was 52,000 people. 52,000 people came out to see the president. Jesus Christ. Now, contrast that, I can talk about crowd sizes since Biden has been president. Afterwards, here's an example. Lancaster, Louisiana, October 2021, the president showed up at some factory, to tout something, and they were going to have they let the public in to see the president. Nobody showed up. Nobody. You got that? Nobody showed up to see the president of the United States. In most instances, he's drawn about 2 or 3 dozen people wherever he's went. Ohio State University last year, 30 people showed up. I mean, this is unbelievable. And I keep telling my liberal friends, no, something's wrong here. And one of my liberal friends says, no, you don't understand, Jim. People didn't vote for Joe Biden. They voted against Donald Trump. Yeah, I know that. But all of them, every single fucking one of them, no. And now the guy's president and people still aren't showing up. They do not show up to see this guy. And meanwhile, Trump's drawing 20,000 people wherever he goes. It's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. You cannot, in your right mind, tell me at this point that Trump did a worse job than Joe Biden's been doing. You can't. It's inconceivable. Other than Ukraine, which is still the end of that story has not been written yet. Other than that, Joe Biden has fucked up every single thing his administration has tried to do. So now the latest thing is, this is hilarious too. There's a strike going on in Hollywood. The actors have joined the writers. SAG has joined the Writers Guild of America. They're on strike. They've shut Hollywood down. Right? Got it? All right. Now, a bunch of Democratic politicians in California want to give the the state to pay unemployment to the striking workers. It's absolutely hilarious. But we'll talk about that later because Nathan Sue is here. Hold on. Nathan, hi. How you doing?
Hi, good evening. What can I do? Thank you for having me on your program.
For the first time I'm looking at you. We've only talked before in the audio. So yeah. You're a very attractive man.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Now, I asked your publicist this, Nathan, that she did not respond to me. I've always been, do you like to be called Nathan or Nan?
Yeah, call me Nan. People always call me Nan, but when I start writing, they say your name is too much of Chinese. You need American name.
Well, not only that, I was thinking somebody was saying it's too short too. 5 letters. I don't know. Okay, so I'm glad you're here because I want to talk to you about the Chinese situation. All right, first of all, what's going on with the economy over there? It appears to be tanking, but I've always said they have an inherently false economy because all the numbers are basically fake, so no one can really tell. What do you know?
Well, their economy it's really in trouble. Their real estate it's at a rock bottom. That's number one, and their export is declining. In July, their export actually dropped 14.5% comparing with July of last year. And also a lot of foreign investments are leaving China right now. So that's the three challenges really facing the Chinese Communist regime. Their CPI in June was about 0.2, 0.2 comparing with last year, while July their CPI dropped to minus 0.3. So they are already officially in deflation. So their economy is on its way to go down.
Now, there's this company called Evergrande, right?
Yes.
They have filed for bankruptcy in the United States. I don't even know. Is there such a thing as bankruptcy in China? I don't even know.
There is a bankruptcy in China, but they are not. The Chinese government did not allow all these real estate companies to go bankrupt because it will create more trouble for the for the Chinese Communist regime. So they keep all these companies, keep them going as a zombie companies, basically. Now in Evergrande, even in United States, it's not officially bankruptcy. So not bankrupt yet. They are just trying to reorganize their debt. That's what it is.
You mean they filed for reorganizational bankruptcy and not actually like liquidation? Is that what you're saying?
They're trying to reorganize their debt. That's what it is. The Chapter 15 allow them to be protected from their creditors, so they can reorganize their debt. Basically, they will convert whatever the money they owe you to probably share of stocks or something like that.
For those of you who are watching this, if you want to call in and have a question for Nan, the address is on the screen right down there. So we got a different. We're doing a different thing here, Nan. We're taking video phone calls on the show. So anyway, so my other question: is it true that Americans cannot buy real estate in China?
No, that's not true.
Okay.
You can buy real estate in China. That's not. They actually try to attract American investors to go to China to make an investment, whatever you want to make at this point. But there are certain consider the factor of national security. Some of the high-tech companies, you may not be allowed to make your investment, but they actually try to attract American investors. If you want to buy real estate in China nowadays, you're more than welcome by the Chinese Communist.
You mean like me if I want to buy a condo? You mean or something like that, right?
Yeah. Whatever you want to do, that's if you are still actually for foreigners who are still interested in making real estate investments, which I don't think I think people are smart enough not to go there.
well, no, we all know a lot of people do go there. I mean, I know a lot of people have gone to China, but
well, if they go there right now, they basically will trap themselves.
Yeah. So what's the opposite? I mean, I know that there's a lot of people in the United States, a lot of people in Congress that are bitching about the fact that the Chinese are buying land up like near Air Force and military bases up in the Midwest, up where we're up here, and we don't have any laws prohibiting that. Are they doing this for a strategic reason? They're not doing it just to buy land, are they?
We have no way to really say that they don't have if they have a strategic purpose or not, but it is dangerous because a lot of land that's being purchased by the Chinese owned companies, those lands are near the strategically sensitive area related to national security, like military base or missile base, that kind of so those locations are pretty sensitive. I would be actually more concerned other than land, there are Chinese corporations being here buying a lot of food processing companies. Those are large ones. So do you know who is putting the food on your table?
No, I don't.
Yeah, so this is I will be more concerned about those purchase. Of course, land is another concern. If they're actually nearby some of the areas that's sensitive to our national security. But food, it's also something else we need to think about. Don't just think about those other commercial corporations. They're they're like a industry. But
Yeah.
if one day there is a war going on, or there's a huge conflict going on between United States and China, think about who is putting the food on
Right.
your table.
Right. Hey, can you explain for our viewers and even me just some basic primer of how the Chinese government is set up? Like in 50 words. I mean, I know they have a Congress or something, equivalent to ours or something like that. And but it's a one-party system, and that the Congress really doesn't do much. Can you explain what the structure is of this whole thing?
Well, first of all, they do have a Congress called People's Congress, but that it's a rubber stamp organization. Okay,
Right.
There's no election. Their congressional representative was not elected, but rather appointed by the Chinese Communist Party. So
Is it
they
done by geographic region?
Yes, they by geographical region as well as different industries. They will, handpick the candidates. You probably can. There are certain process, but those process are fully controlled by the communist regime. And you look at Hong Kong, that's what happened in Hong Kong right now. So they control the whole process. That's number one, and number two. The communist regime itself, they don't have election, so they kind of like a lot of people call Chairman Xi President Xi. No, he's not a President Xi. He's a Chairman Xi. Chairman. It's the word used by 1.4 billion Chinese people to call him, and that's how he call himself. In English vocabulary, president supposed to be a elected person to the position, not a designated person to the position. So I don't know who created the word, the name calling him President Xi. That's just totally incorrect. He is a Chairman Xi.
Thank you for bringing that up. I'm educated now. I will not do that again. Yeah. So there's one Congress or two? They don't have a bicameral sort of thing, or
well,
then you
one or two doesn't matter, but they do have another organization. It's called the National the Chinese what was the political consultation committee. It's similar. You just look at it superficially. They have like similar to the bicameral system, but however, that system, another organization, that committee, it's not elected. It's appointed. It's the representative of elite. Maybe elite in different maybe for example, academics, or or certain different part of society. Chinese Communist Party will handpick some representative that provide the consulting purpose for the Chinese Communist Party. And there is a democratic party in China. That's also superficially, okay, because those democratic parties in China, they are not opposition parties. They are the ruling parties. They are the system ruling party that will that assist the Chinese Communist Party to rule China. And that's why in China there was always a democratic party, never one more, never one less.
So you're saying there are technically two parties, except they don't actually compete against each other, right?
There's just one party, Communist Party, and then there's another Democratic Party, but they are the system ruling party that assists the Chinese Communist Party to rule China. So those, they are just we call them flower party, for decoration purpose.
Okay, so how much dissent is actually tolerated within the system? I'm under the impression that sometimes, like some of the official, like the China Daily and some of the official newspapers, will sometimes run editorials that, let's say, they're constructively critical, and that's actually tolerated. But am I right about that? Is there a line or?
Yeah, there are certain lines. The Chinese Communist Party, they are very smart, I would say. They are very smart. They're really bad, but you can't say they're not smart. They're really smart. So they set up. There's a lot of media outside of China. All work with the Chinese Communist Party's so-called United Front work department. United Front, like you form a United Front against the enemy, right? The United Front, set up all different media in different ways. Some of them more critical to the Chinese Communist Party, some of them less. So when one issue come up during the debate, you can see many different voices from different media. But at the end, there's a bottom line there. So they can, they are strategically set up all these different voice critical of Chinese Communist Party, but they all controlled by the United Front work department. Georgetown Foundation, like 2 years ago, I think it was maybe 3 years ago, did investigation, and what they found? They found the United Front work department of the Chinese Communist Party, their annual budget is actually bigger than their foreign ministry's annual budget.
Really? Huh.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So I'm assuming, just to take this to an extreme, that that the constructive criticism is tolerated and allowed and maybe even sometimes welcome, but you can't say that we want to abolish the Communist Party altogether. That'll get you thrown in the gulag, right?
Well, there are certain red lines they draw for different media. It's not that you think they will tolerate. No, for different media, it's strategically set up. There's your different lines draw for different media. So you play a certain role under that system, basically.
And if you're in that media, are those lines obvious? Do you need to be told?
Of course, yeah. It depends, and then they have also they have a different, it's complicated system. There are different departments they work with, and some of them work with military, some of them work with United Front work, some of them work with propaganda department. So they all have different lines that a draw for them. You cannot make that decision yourself. Say you want to just say, hey, I'm going to be doing something like a constructive criticism. It's not what you think it is. They set up a very strict line for different media.
Yes. So tell me about Chairman Xi. So first of all, is he all powerful? Does he have to answer to anybody?
He is the most powerful figure in China. He has total control of Chinese Communist Party. Now he handpicked all other 6 members of the standing committee of the Chinese Communist Party's political bureau. So basically, that's 7 men. Besides him, there's another 6 he handpicked. It's the highest organization that control China right now. So basically, right now it's just, you can say this is a one-man system.
That's a dictatorship.
That is true. That is true, because he handpicked the other 6, right? The other 6 all follow him.
Do you know anything about his mind? How it works? What do you think? What's important to him, or what do you think?
I don't know. The only thing I'm 100% for sure is he will keep the Chinese Communist Party going as long as possible, as long as he is in power.
Well, you were saying how these people aren't stupid, and I totally buy that, because the one thing the Chinese are great at doing that we aren't, is planning way, way, way ahead. I mean,
No. Don't. If somebody come tell you Chinese Communist Party it's bad, it's the worst. It's the worst enemy in the human history against the peace and humanity. That is true. But if somebody come to you to say they're stupid, then
yeah,
that's not true.
Right. No, I know that. That's my point. They're very, very good at planning ahead, and we're terrible at planning ahead. We can't even plan ahead 3 months. You know, the one thing they have, if you ask me, the one thing they have going over us in spades is that simply because they're this dictatorship, they can turn, like policy-wise, they can turn on a dime. Where democracy is very, very slow and messy. You know, it's just like it is, and that's they do have an inherent advantage there about the fact that Xi can wake up one morning and says he wants everybody's hair dyed blue, and that'll happen in a week.
It's not going to happen in a week. It's going to happen in 10 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. But if you want to do that here, it would take months and months of reviews and, environmental impact statements and all that sort of shit. Okay. So back to the economy thing. So what do you think is going to happen here in the next few months?
Well, China's economy is continue to go down. That's for sure. But just the huge trouble in the economy doesn't mean it's the Chinese Communist political system is going to collapse. That's totally two different things. Think about in the Great Leap Forward period between 1958 to 1961. That's 3 years. They had like about 5-6% of their total population that die because of hunger, right? Now think about this: if in the United States, we don't say 5-6% of people die. Just imagine 0.5% of people die of hunger. What's going to happen to Wall Street? Is right. Is right. But over there, you barely even hear it, right?
Yeah.
So it's totally different system. China, in the past 20 years, after we allow China join WTO, the mistake we have been making is we trying to think about the way how we are going to handle the situation to understand how their behavior is going to be. No, that's totally wrong. So that's why we came to this point. We make Chinese Communist regime. It's Americans. It's the entire Western world's work of past 20 years. We allowed China to join WTO in 2001, and from 2001 to 2021, that 20 years, China's economy grew tenfold. Literally tenfold, and became the biggest threat to peace and humanity in the entire human history. You can't find any other regime that will pose more threat to global peace and humanity than the Chinese Communist regime today.
I know.
Yeah. So basically, we don't try to understand their behavior, how they are going to do, using our mentality, how we deal with our own economic challenges. So I will say this, that the challenges of their economy face, that the troubles they are facing only make the Chinese Communist regime more dangerous.
What do you think? Do you get desperate? Is that the problem?
Yes. A typical example is Russia, right?
Yeah.
All these the economies of all these regimes are all very fragile. You can in Russia, you look at Iran, you look at North Korea, China, Afghanistan. They all have very fragile economy, a lot of internal challenges. The problem is not how fragile the economy is. The problem is the mentality, how they're going to deal with their own trouble. I mean, unfortunately, all these regime leaders, their way of dealing their own trouble is to think about to export their problem to their neighbors. So that's the way. I mean, that's why Russia went to Ukraine, and then you look around. You look at North Korea. They have been repeatedly conducting all the military exercises, shooting the missiles And
Yeah, the fascinating thing about that is Italy's not exactly their neighbor, geographically. That's what fascinates me about that, you know? And let me ask you, this is not a rhetorical question about exporting their problems to neighbors. Does it work?
well, it will, the Western world, they won't scare the Western world, but the problem is it's going to shift their internal tension of their society about all the conflicts in their own society to outside. So they will create something to for the purpose of a shift the society's attention
Yeah.
to outside, so people will pay attention to what's going on, like maybe the war on Taiwan or wherever,
Yeah.
they're doing maybe in the Japan Sea, against Japan, or between North Korea, South Korea. Those are the hot points and hot spots. And those are the hot spots. If they create something that will they may be able to successfully shift the attention of all this internal struggle inside China to outside.
How accurate is the local press there? If I'm a Chinese person living in Beijing or Shanghai, how much do I know really about what's going on? Like almost nothing?
Well, the majority of the people, they don't go online. They don't go.
Is that because they can't?
It's true. They have this golden shield on. Unfortunately, it's being helped by the Western tech corporations and helping the Chinese Communist regime to build the biggest firewall in the human history. They, you can't. It's very hard to get through those firewall to
Yeah.
go out of the control of Chinese Communist regime to look at the real information. Well, there are small groups, small percentage of people. They try to it's called, they have a name, it's called climbing up the wall. They climb the wall and then they
Oh.
will go outside. They will look
Yeah,
at,
that makes sense. Right. That's yeah.
they
right.
are small, but small people. Think about most of the people, most people, you go home, you work like 8 hours, you go home, you have family to take care of. A lot of them don't do that. That's just the reality.
Yeah, well, that's true here too. It's not a
Yeah, it's
large
true.
percentage of
How
people,
many
but yeah.
people really follow every day's news in its detail?
Yeah.
They turn on the TV, watch 10 minutes, they're done, right? Or
Yeah.
maybe in the morning they will sit down and have like 10 minutes for coffee. They will, look at the title of the news for like quickly going through, and they're done. They think they are they're updated.
Right. Well, no, yeah, yeah. So, Nan, so forgive me if I get this wrong. You were born over there, right?
That is correct.
And how long have you lived in the US?
I came to United States in 1989, January of 1989, about 5 months prior to Tiananmen Square massacre.
Oh, that's interesting. You missed it over there. Huh.
Well, it was true, and tell you a story that
Please do.
yeah, I have a brother, my younger brother. When I was here during the Tiananmen Square massacre, he was in China. He was in university, and he was actually he went to the stage. He was actually trying to give a pro democracy speech. Now, but what happened is he was a lucky guy. He only finished like one sentence, and then the sounds, the audio system
Went out. Yeah.
went wrong. So he left the stage. He didn't make it, any speech. So otherwise he would have been in jail.
Yeah.
But he did not, because nobody knew what he was going to say.
Right. Good for him. Okay, so I'm gonna end with this here. So you've been here for quite a while. So how do you gauge the Biden administration's dealings with China? You could make an argument looking at what they're doing that it appears that they have Biden in their back pocket. I mean, it just does. They do stupid shit.
Well, I will say this: Biden's China policy and the current congressional leaders, their China policy, they all follow the same direction set by Donald Trump. When Trump was the one when he started trade war in January of 2018 against the China. That was the beginning of turning our entire China policy of last half century around. That turned the wrong direction of our China policy. There was turnaround. Especially, I will give the credit to Peter Navarro. Who wrote two books, two great books. That's by China #1, another one, The Coming War on China. Before he was appointed as a senior counsel in White House, and he was he was a great mind behind our China policy change, and ever since it has been pretty much moving on a right direction. It's just a little quicker or a little slower, that kind of different situation. But I would say our congressional leaders, they are kind of like moving the China policy in the right direction.
Do you ever? I don't personally ever see an actual war between the United States and China vis-a-vis actually using weapons. I do see like an economic war, kind of the same way we defeated the Soviet Union. I mean, is that the way you see this too?
No, absolutely not.
Okay,
100% no.
Yeah. So what do you think?
Well, I think, we are actually in a great danger facing a war right now. This is right now in the next.
You're talking a real military war.
Yes.
Yes. Right.
Real military war in next 5 to 5 years. I see, because China's economy is just off the peak, on its way go down. So if the regime leader sees, there's no way their economy is going to turn back, they may choose to start war earlier when they still have power and strength and capacity. I wouldn't worry about China like 30 or maybe 50 years from right now. Their economy is definitely going down as long as the Western world, the United States, China policy keep moving in the current direction. I wouldn't worry about their threat. Well, I will say I will worry less about their threat 30, 50 years from now. But right now, it's really the most dangerous time window facing us. China's Chairman Xi actually ordered Chinese military to be fully ready to annex Taiwan by the year of 2027. Now, U.S. Air Force General Mike Minihan, he predicted the direct military conflict between United States and China could come as early as 2025. Several other military generals predicted maybe 2027. And our political leaders in Washington, they predict, they say, well, probably not going to happen prior to 2030. But keep in mind here, nobody talking about if, all of them just talking about when. So right now, it's actually the most dangerous time window facing us. Later, maybe China become weaker. We keep building up our strength. In the past 20 years, we didn't really do much to build up our military. Think about this. DoD, Department of Defense, basically said China has the largest navy in the world when it comes to counting the total number of battleships, right?
Yeah.
So they have think about why they're doing that. China is quickly build up its navy. U.S. Navy have 290 battleships. China have 330 right now, and by the year of 2025, China may have 400 battleships. And by the year of 2030,
I understand many of those ships are bigger and more powerful than ours too already.
Well, see, China right now is the biggest, the largest shipbuilding nation in the world right now. That's why they are cranking out battleships left and right. Last year, more than 50% of global shipbuilding order went to China. So they are quickly build up their naval force, and also China already have more land-based nuclear launch device than United States. And why are they doing that? Because they already have this hypersonic missile technology, which flies 5 to 10 times than the ballistic missiles. So
I find this amazing that they have it and we don't. I mean, the joke was for 40 years they've been stealing our technology, and all of a sudden they're ahead of us. It's like Jesus.
It's correct. So that's why we are actually it's in the most dangerous time window, to maybe having a war with China in the next few years.
Yeah. All right. I got one more question before we leave here. I promised a friend of mine. I promised him I'd ask you this, and that is, do you know how the Chinese are handling the UFO situation? Do you know anything about that?
That's probably their national secret too.
Uh-huh.
I
Yeah.
don't think the public can get any information from the regime.
Right. That's what I kind of figured too. But I promised my friend I'd ask you. So I can't thank you enough. Now, see, I learned a lot tonight. You put me straight on a couple of things. And I need that. Hey, so Nan, you haven't written any books, have you?
No.
Okay.
I wrote about a bunch of Chinese articles and some English reports, but I never actually wrote any book.
Because the people that are the harbingers of what you're talking about, who I regard as you, Gordon Chang, and Peter Navarro, it's a very small club, but those guys have written books. You need to write a book.
Oh, thank you for that suggestion. Look, see, we have time to do that.
Yeah, right. I know it's easy to say, isn't it? Yeah, you should write a book. Yeah, okay. Yeah, but seriously, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. This is the first time we've done this where I've seen your face, so it's very cool. I really appreciate it. Will have you on again if you can tolerate us. So I appreciate
All right,
it.
of course. You have a good night.
Thanks. You too. We'll see you. Bye-bye. That was Nan Su. I finally asked him at the beginning of the interview. I never knew if he wanted to go by Nathan or Nan. He says Nan Su. He's the Chinese reporter, the China reporter. He is China, formerly Chinese, but he's the China reporter for the Epoch Times. And that was really fascinating because I don't know if you heard there. I said you're probably never going to have a military war, and he said no. We're gonna have one. So I found that really, really fascinating because he would know. I'm just a guy on your internet TV talking. So why don't you call me up here? So now the number at the bottom of the screen right here. And there you go. It's not a number, it's a URL, Gemini.com/call, and hit the big blue button at the top of the screen, and you can talk to me. Other than that, while you're calling in and while I'm waiting here, I got one more thing I want to talk about tonight. And usually I'd like to get off of the news for the third segment. I've been meaning to mention this. I've talked about this. I've kind of talked this up the last 2 or 3 nights. We haven't got around to it. I want to talk about the RFK assassination. And who was it that we were talking to? Was it Mark Tapscott? Or I can't remember. We were talking to or Chaz Shaw last week or something about the fact that. So here's the deal. I love the conspiracy theories. And on Thursday, we're going to talk to Craig Williamson, our guest from the Vanish podcast. We're going to talk about DB Cooper and Amelia Earhart. But he knows all about all this stuff. And I'm sure sooner or later we'll get around to talking to him about that too. So Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is running for president right now. He's got polling about 20% of the Democratic Party, which is astonishing considering the fact he's running against the incumbent president, who's a goofball, as I was saying in the first block. But it was his father, Robert F. Kennedy Sr., who was shot in the pantry of the Ambassador Hotel in June 1968. Now, this is the weirdest assassination ever. If you think people are confused about JFK, because the problem here is there's obvious evidence that contradicts each other. It's not even obtuse. It's not a conspiracy theory. All right, so let me explain to you what happened here. You should call me up. We can talk about this. Okay, he just won the California primary running for president. He's running for the Democratic nomination in 1968. He's the front runner. Winning the California primary, you could kind of say he pretty much locked it up. That was kind of they were ebullient there, just joyous, the party they were having at the ballroom there. The reason this is kind of close to my heart is because I lived in Los Angeles for years, and I lived in the same apartment the entire time, about 2 blocks from the Ambassador Hotel at 36 and Wilshire. I was right down the street. I went to the hotel all the time. I used the post office there almost daily. I hung out in the bars. It was in my mind, it's kind of a romantic thing, especially because the hotel's not there anymore. It closed in 1989, and in 2006 they tore it down to build a high school. It's the single most expensive high school in the history of the United States. They bought this land, prime real estate in the heart of Los Angeles, and tore down this iconic hotel. The Coconut Grove nightclub was there. All sorts of stuff was there. All sorts of history happened there. Even this, what I'm talking about right now, and they tore it down, and they built a high school. And the high school is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. No, I'm sorry, Robert F. Kennedy High School. It's named after the guy who died there. But the fact of the matter is that the building is no longer there. And the terrible thing is, okay, when the high school finally won this protracted battle for this land, they said, all right, we're going to save part of the original building. They were going to use the Coconut Grove nightclub, with the original Coconut Grove nightclub, they were going to use as an auditorium and other things. There's a diner, a little breakfast diner in the hotel that was very iconic for its architecture mostly. They were going to save that. They said they were going to save several elements of it. Well, one by one, that all got completely whitewashed and bullshit, and they tore all of it down. If I'm right, there's one single wall of the original structure left, and it's obtuse. It's buried somewhere between classrooms or something like that. And I know they might have had to have left that to contractually fulfill what they promised. I don't know. But for all practical purposes, there's nothing left of the original building. It was actually a series of buildings, but the main building was iconic and had a whole bunch, and that's where all the action happened. And that's where I went. So on that June night in 1968, they were in the one of the ballrooms at the Ambassador Hotel, and he's giving his victory speech, and they're taking him out of the hotel. They've decided they're going to go down through the basement kitchen for the ballroom and out. And in the processes, they're walking through a pantry, and this pantry is basically a glorified hallway. It's very small. I don't know. It's about 20 by 20 feet. It's a relatively small room, and with two doors on each end. Basically, it's a room that you walk through. So it's like I said, it's a glorified hallway. And they're walking through there. Kennedy has bodyguards. Kennedy also has an entourage that's with him, and this is very important. One of the people in the entourage is Rosie Greer, the NFL football player at that time, okay? So keep that in mind. So they're walking through this pantry, and a guy named Suron stands in front of Kennedy, pulls out a gun, and fires it from about 3 feet away from Kennedy, and Kennedy collapses, right? Immediately, a bunch of people, and especially Rosie Greer, that NFL football player, jump Suron, and they are trying to pound the gun out of his hand. So apparently what happened is they jumped him, and he fell against one of those steel rollaway tables that they use in hotels, and he's on it. He's face up on this, and they're pounding. Greer is pounding the gun out of his hand. The gun keeps going off. Thankfully, it didn't hit anybody else. But there were 8 shots in the gun, and all 8 shots went off. And Greer knew enough about the guns. He knew when the 8th shot would happen, he knew that the gun was empty. And at that point, he just basically beat Suron up. It's like, they weren't going to tolerate this for a second. Meanwhile, Kennedy's laying on the floor. He's bleeding. He's conscious for like a minute or two. Then goes into consciousness, is taken to the hospital. He dies a day later. So now here's the problem with this story. All right, you would think this is entirely cut and dried. And also, I want to let you know, folks, if you're ever planning on killing anybody, here's a great way to do it, because we got both examples here, JFK and RFK. If you want to kill somebody and get people confused about what happened, do it in a huge crowded space. Don't do it in a locked room with two people. The police will figure that out for sure. There was a huge number of people in this tiny little room when this happened. I don't know how many exactly in the room, maybe 40, 50. But like I said, the room's only about 20 by 20. So the room is packed to the gills with people. So you'd think a whole bunch of people saw this. Well, a whole bunch of people did see it. That's the thing. And apparently, maybe not. So my point is, you got JFK, RFK. JFK was killed, and there were about 300 people in Dealey Plaza when the shots were fired. There were about, in this tiny little room, maybe 40 or 50 people at the time. In Dealey Plaza, you ask 300 people what happened, you get 300 different stories. Basically, the same thing happened at the Ambassador Hotel. But the problem really lies in what the coroner concluded happened to Kennedy. Thomas Noguchi, very famous coroner, history in the city of Los Angeles and that city's history. He was a coroner at the time, and he said, even though Sirhan was standing right in front of Kennedy and fired the gun from about 3 feet away, I mean, literally a arm's length away from him. Noguchi said that Kennedy died from a bullet in the back of his head that was fired from literally like less than 2 inches away. In other words, extreme point blank range. Basically, right with a gun almost touching his head. That's what Noguchi said. And then there's another thing too. So, okay, they tore down the Ambassador Hotel, but the Los Angeles Police Department, they did take all the wall panels out of that room and save them, and they're in storage somewhere to this day. Well, I don't know where. So because this was a crime scene, so they wanted to make absolutely certain before they tore the hotel down that they took these panels. And the problem is, this count was done right after the shooting, but they confirmed it when they took the panels out. There were 8 shots in Sirhan's gun, but there were 13 bullet holes in the walls. And how do you explain that? And on top of that, here's the third thing too. There's a few people, not a lot of people saw this, but there were corroborating witnesses who said they saw a woman in a black and white polka dot dress running out of the room yelling, "We shot him, we shot him." Now, Sirhan's been incarcerated for this crime. He's still in jail to this day. This is 1968, so it's well over 50 years. 55 about. So yeah, he's an old man now. He swears to this day he does not remember anything about the shooting. He remembers going to the hotel, and he remembers running into an attractive woman that he kind of started to flirt with, and he doesn't remember anything else. There's a theory that, it's just a theory, and it's a conspiracy theory, but the problem is the evidence of the crime doesn't match the obvious solution of it, which is that Sirhan shot him. The theory is that Sirhan was set up as what's called a Manchurian Candidate, based on that movie from the 1960s starring Frank Sinatra, and that is somebody who's been brainwashed to shoot somebody or hypnotized to shoot another person, basically against their will. Now, this is kind of lost to history, but about maybe 10 years ago, there was a study done to see if this actually could be done. Some team of scientists wanted to figure out, could you actually talk somebody into shooting somebody against their will, completely, brainwashed and hypnotized. And they made for the study, they made basically I won't say reality show out of it, but they made a documentary television show out of this. It was 5 or 6 episodes. Their conclusion is that it's difficult, but it could be done. And they did it. They took on 92 people, I think it was, and they finally got it down to one person they thought to do the crime. Now, the thing is, the only thing is in the show, when they actually had the person do the shooting, he was shooting blanks, and he didn't know that. So no one got hurt. But he did actually pull the trigger and try to shoot somebody, and he didn't know it. So they basically proved this could be done. There was a lot of speculation for many years saying that this could not be done. But these scientists basically proved that it could. Although they said you'd have to be very careful and it's quite difficult. I mean, you could screw this up big time. They admitted that. But they succeeded in doing it. So, I don't know. We're going to have to we'll talk to Craig Williamson another time, not this Thursday, but later, about that particular killing, because it's really fascinating. Don't have a clue what to think. I do not know. It's like I said, the real problem is that the coroner himself said that the evidence did not match the material witnesses. That's what he said. He said, no, he was not shot from the front. He was shot from the back at really, really close range. And the best theory anyone's come up with is that Kennedy's bodyguard did it, because the last picture taken of Kennedy, which was like a second or two before the shots were fired, the last picture, his bodyguard, I can't remember the guy's name, is actually holding his hand. They're actually there together, and they're saying that the theory is that in the confusion of what Sirhan did, and Sirhan did probably pull the trigger. He did not hit Kennedy, but he probably did pull the trigger. That simultaneously, this bodyguard shot Kennedy in the back of the head. That's the theory. No one's ever proved it. God knows what. I don't know. Life is strange, huh? I want to thank Nan Sue for joining us tonight. I want to thank you folks for watching. You don't call. It pisses me off. You got to start calling. I want to get to the point, I've told you this, where we do this show Mondays through Thursdays. Now we're going to do one show next Monday, and then we're going to take a week off. I'm going to go through the data. That show we're going to do an hour early too, from a posted time. We're either going to change our regular time when we come back the day after Labor Day, or we're going back to the 11 p.m. Eastern slot, one or the other. I want to go through the data and see how it worked out. We did this experiment because we had several people have told me they'd like to watch. They'd watch more if they could watch the show earlier. Our original plan was to go on at 10 p.m. Eastern, and I changed it at the last minute because I didn't want to compete with Gutfeld and Fox News. So I figured that's the only other thing on TV or anywhere where anybody would rather watch than us. That's what I figured. Maybe I shouldn't worry about that. I don't know. We'll find out. So for the rest of the week, we'll be back at 10 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. Not tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to go on live right after the Republican primary debate on Fox News. Now, I am not going to watch right now. It appears the plan is going to be that Tucker Carlson is going to interview Donald Trump online at the same time. I'm not going to watch that. I know what Trump has to say. We know his policies. We know the jokes. He's a very entertaining guy, blah, blah, blah. I want to really know what these people happens at this debate. I really do. I actually think it's kind of, first of all, Trump is right not to be in the debate. He's so far ahead. At this point, I actually do think he's a presumptive nominee. He's so far ahead. I mean, people are saying, it might change if he actually ends up in jail or, of course, does something stupid in court or all this sort of shit. I don't think so, because I think so many people are behind him right now, specifically because he's going through all this legal crap. So I don't think it's going to change it. I know that there's a possibility. I've been wrong before. I was wrong in 1972 once. I remember distinctly. But we know what Trump has to say. So I'm actually glad he's not going to be there, because it gives these people a chance to talk. And I want to know what they're, the Trump organization apparently put up a campaign. They put a meme up this afternoon that said that it's the vice presidential debate. It's like, who's auditioning to be vice president? All right, that's funny, but there may be some truth to that too. We'll find out. Anyway, tomorrow, right after the debate's done, it's like I'm gonna wait. It won't be two minutes, and we're gonna be back on, and we'll talk about it. And then you call me up, okay? We can talk. All right, okay? You call. I know this is gonna be a slog because people aren't used to doing this. But you can call with your camera. And once again, I'm going to bring this up again. You do not have to show your face on the screen. You can choose no video, and we can still talk to you. So at any rate, Thursday, Craig Williamson from the Vanish Podcast. And then we're going to do next Monday at the same time at 10 p.m. Eastern. And then we're taking a week off for Labor Day. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.